tiny thin little trails that they're leaving now. And I don't see that overseas. So there's all sorts of this sort of weird stuff going on. I believe that the flood in Queensland that happened last year was quite possibly manipulated as well. There's actually a weather control device that the Queensland government was talking about buying from Indonesia, which appeared in the paper a couple of months before. Mm-hmm. Possibly they were testing it. Well, it actually works. Yes, it brings rain, all right. And so there's all this sort of stuff. I mean, but just the people, it's very, very difficult to wake a lot of Australian people up. They seem to be very convinced that we live in a lucky country, even though it's one of the highest cost of livings in the world. I think that they're also, if they're not doing it already, they are trying to turn the whole country into a nuclear waste dump. I mean, it's the perfect spot for it if you want to look at things from a global perspective. You've got this huge desert country away from everywhere else, so where else are you going to put your waste? You know, I think it's been kept with a very low population for good reason. There's also would appear to be a lot of underground bases around this place. In Western Australia, there's been reports of a lot of bases in Western Australia, some in the Blue Mountains here and some in Queensland as well. So there's a lot going on here that people just don't know about and people just don't notice.
I mean, I've heard we haven't done specifically a program about it. It's been coming up more in passing, but we hear about Pine Gap quite a bit to the US base down in Australia. Are a lot of things connected with that? Do you see, Max?
I think so, but it's very difficult to find out anything about Pine Gap. It is so secretive. It's very, very difficult to get information with anything to do with it. Yeah. It really is. It appears to be a very small base from the surface, and yet it has a C-130 arrive there every day. So God knows what's in all of that. But there is reported to be quite a large base underground, but we really don't know. Nobody in the country knows what's going on there. It's really one of the most secret bases in the world, I believe.
Interesting. So, I mean, what if we discuss a little bit about some of the mentality, what you see people behind this, on how you feel from your perspective, basically what is going on? Why do you think that people in charge or in power are heading us into this direction of detaching us from nature, basically, in that sense? In this country, it might take another turn than banning of plants directly, if you will. But I see the same thing happening here. I see the same thing happening around the world in one way or another. It just seems to take a different shape in different countries. But what do you see, Max, from your perspective?
Well, all the world's a stage. I mean, really, there's already a global government that's in control of the planet, and the parts that it isn't in control of, it's gaining control of now, with what we see in the Middle East and all this sort of stuff. When this is all pretty staged, it really is. Now, the Libyan crisis, this is all completely staged. One of the things with the Libyan rebels, one of the first things they did to free themselves was put in a central bank. We want our own central bank. I mean, that's no way to free yourself, is it? So it shows you who's in charge of that revolution. So, I mean, there's already a global government that's doing this. The thing is the system itself. I mean, there's been this system put in place, and everybody that's educated or indoctrinated into this system simply works to make the system more efficient. This is what we perceive to be intelligence in this world. You know, we go to school, we learn all this left brain stuff, so we get completely disconnected from our right brain and disconnected from reality, disconnected from nature. You know, we're taught only to think with our left brain. The left brain thinks in language, and so your knowledge of reality is based on your knowledge of the language. You know what I mean? It's this whole weird system. And then when you get within the system, you start working as a politician or a corporate head or a salesman or a car salesman or a real estate agent or anything you do. All you're trained to do is success, acquisition, more efficient. So you're indoctrinated within a system of reality that is designed to make itself more efficient. It's almost like a living organism in itself. So it's very difficult to start pointing the finger at people and start saying they are responsible. I think that the whole system itself is a misconception of reality, And it is we, the people, it is our failure to face the shadow in ourselves when we see injustice. The thing is, we don't feel free, Henry. You know, we believe freedom is freedom of acquisition. Like, I'm free to move about, I'm free to do this, I'm free to do that, but there's certain things I can't do. I have to pay taxes, and I have to pay to be alive, which means I've got to go and work in order to collect paper just to live on the planet. So nobody's free. Nobody who needs money is free. You know, this whole system, this fictional system. We go and we spend our time basically strip mining the planet and selling things to each other and doing all this stuff that we don't need to do in order to collect paper so we can pay to be alive. It doesn't make any sense at all. So it's this whole system itself that's doing it, and it's because we don't actually feel free. We don't believe what we are. We don't understand what we are. Humanity has lost its connection to itself and to the planet that it lives on.
That's right, and I've been arguing for some time now that even that tiny bit of freedom, if you will, that we have been giving, even if we can't put that name on it, even what you described with language and words, and the fact that we have to be in the left brain, if you will, all the time, even that real estate, if you will, is diminishing. It's shrinking. Even words and language is being destroyed, and it's like the noose is tightening all the time. So the question is, of course, if we're continuing on this path, Max, where will we end up? How much will we have left if we let this continue or keep on, you know?
Well, we won't be human anymore. We're losing all of our connection to humanity. So this is why English is being promoted as the global language, because there's so many words that have been taken out of English. It's like Newspeak in 1984. They removed all of the words that related to revolution or freedom or any of this sort of stuff. So the people knew what they wanted, but they didn't know how to convey the information to each other. And one of the words I often use to describe this what's been done to the English language is the word Dharma. And people understand what Dharma is. Dharma is your place within the cosmic machine. It's all of this sort of stuff. It's doing the right thing at the right time in the right way for the right reason, so that you find balance and have find your perfect path in life, and thereby eliminate part of your karma and all this sort of stuff. It's like very, very involved. You could write a whole book to explain what Dharma actually means. But if I was speaking Hindi or Sanskrit, all I have to do is say Dharma, and they know exactly what I mean. So we've had these spiritual understandings and these understandings of how we should function in reality taken out of our language. So how can we convey this information to people? And words such as equity. It's so difficult to explain what equity is to people. Equity is freedom. Equity is knowing who and what you are. I've spoken about equity on many of the shows that I've done, and people say, explain equity to me. And I say, it's being who you are. It's living the conscience of God, whatever you perceive God to be. It doesn't matter whether it's the Christian God or a giant robot. Whatever you perceive your creator to be, it is living within that conscience, knowing that that you are in the creator's creation, and that your path here is to serve the creator's creation. I mean, this is such a simple rule. This is even if you're not religious, and I'm not particularly religious. This is just my understanding of reality. And this is equity. And as someone the other day, I was explaining it to them. I said, there's a lot of people out there going for sovereignty, but they need to be in equity. And the difference is that a sovereign person goes to court to represent himself. Someone in equity, well, I'm in equity and I don't represent myself. I am myself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's the difference. That's the difference. What's the point of addressing a fictional system? It's all fiction. Well, what's real is us. So then you've got to ask what put this system in place, because this is a system that is completely inhuman. And yet it seems to have been created to support the human race, to govern the human race. But how come it's such an inhuman system? And they start removing our understanding of reality from us. Then they start removing things in nature, so that if we ever do get this understanding back, the interface is gone. We won't be able to connect with it anymore. So what put the human race in this state? We've got like 3% of our DNA active. We're using half of our brain. And it seems to be the main activity of this entire civilization is to strip mine this planet in order to support what is essentially a fictional lifestyle in temporary accommodation, because all of our buildings are temporary. We don't build anything to last. We don't build anything like the pyramids or the Mayan ruins or any of these enormous structures we found from the past. We built all this temporary stuff. So why do